Welcome, Jet fans, to another episode of Jets Life Podcast. And we're in day two of free agency. Just going to go over some of the recent updates, some of the signings we've had. The signing started late last night. It was a very, very quiet day for Joe Douglas, but once it seems like 10 o'clock hit, or somewhere after that, that's when all of a sudden the news started breaking through, little by little. Three signings, basically back to back. Starting with the first signing the Jets made, 2-year, $18 million contract to John Simpson of the Baltimore Ravens. Played left guard, probably going to play the same position here this year. Um, you're starting to see that offensive line kind of take shape a little bit here now. You got Titman in the middle, obviously, and then left guards filling in. So obviously, there's a lot of still questions at the tackle position. How they're going to address that? Are they going to go address another guard, move AVT to the right side? So that's still a luxury that the Jets have. Is we can work with whatever AVT can give us, and just work with how the board settles. But what is John Simpson? You know, at the forefront, you look at what he is. You can pull up PFF's grade right away. It's not great. He's about an average player, um, but he did have 1,100 sacks. That's 1,100 snaps last year. Only allowing one sack. That's the good. He allowed 11 penalties. That's the bad. That's a high number for a guard. But if you just take the information at the forefront, looking at PFF, you're gonna formulate opinions, and unfortunately, that's not the way you really got to go about this. With it happening so late at night, and with it being kind of late today without much action here, um, I did take a look at some film on John Simpson, and the information you get is he's good in pass protection. You see that right off the bat. If you look at some of these games against good defensive lines, he holds his own, and he always seems like he's going for the next guy. When he's able to pass things off, he handles stunts accordingly. Everything I've seen so far has been pretty good. Where I do see some issues in the running game, he does get a little handsy at times, but um, hence the 11 penalties. But that's offensive linemen as a whole. I mean, it's a known issue around the league. Holding happens on a lot of plays, but he got called for a lot more penalties than other players. So unfortunate situation there for him. I do want to dig into a little bit more, take a little bit more time analyzing his film and get a little familiar with him. But this is the first major signing for the Jets. 2 years, $18 million. What happened with the guard market is kind of crazy. I do have a lot of questions about how the guard situation was handled by the Jets. I was pretty optimistic that they would kind of go into this wave of free agency with not great options at the tackle position and kind of attack the guard position. And it seems like that was the view by a lot of teams. And unfortunately, the Jets didn't fall in that category. My situation here is like you look at a lot of these guards, Robert Hunt, coming into free agency. Once Landon Dickinson signed that big contract, $22 million a year, it was almost right on the wall. These guards that were in free agency this year were going to start getting bigger contracts, and I do wonder, and I don't think this is the case, but we saw it once, and I wonder if it kind of repeated its space here again. Just last year with the situation with the in the draft at 15, Jets were sitting there kind of hoping one of those tackles falls to them. I know that there is video out there of them kind of not having Broderick Jones on their board at that point in time, but to draft, you know, Will McDonald at the time and not addressing one of the major needs you have on offense, it was a little bit alarming in that spot. And here's another situation where it just seems like maybe they, were kind of caught off guard with the guard position and the money that was going out into that position. So they had to settle here for one of those second wave, third wave guys. I know they did sign him on day one, so not really the categorization of a second or third wave guy, but by definition, I mean his contract kind of speaks to what it is. Coming in at a low number when you kind of expected the guard market to be in that 16 to $18 million range tops. Um, the guard market spiked by, as you can see, about $4 million. So really, if you kind of consider that with where they got John Simpson here, it's a little. I mean, it's concerning here. I think when you look at John Simpson too, he comes from an offensive line in Baltimore that's surrounded with great players. Is it something where the weak link on an offensive line is strengthened by those around him? But I mean, the film does show one on one, he's able to hold his own. So at the end of the day, the Jets need blockers, and you would like them to go out there and get the bigger guys, and there are still plenty of names out there. Um, well, I mean, not on the offensive line really. It's kind of dwindling down now, but you know, if that's Joe Douglas' approach, he wants to take this and hit that second wave, third wave. Well, he's got to start hitting that soon because the guards got swiped up pretty quickly here with big money deals. It's getting to a point where he's got to kind of take what's on the board, and he's not going to go crazy, not going to overpay, but at some point you'd like to start seeing more of these positions fill on the offensive line because we're just really I just don't want to be in a situation going into the draft where we're kind of stamping the position we're going to take. I know it's going to be an offensive tackle, 99% sure, but you don't want to get into a situation where similar to last year, where someone you didn't expect to be there slips down to your spot, and you just have no choice but to take a certain position. So just kind of my view there. John Simpson, good player from PFF, average player, kind of replaces Laken Tomlinson and just kind of improves the position by virtue of Laken Tomlinson was just not great last year by any means. So they're improving the left side. It's not a huge improvement, but it's an improvement nonetheless. Still got to figure out the outside or the right guard spot and kind of fill out this offensive line. Um, I'm watching here, seeing if any news pops up. Jets are still quiet. We're approaching that 9:30 clock, um, 9:30 timeline. Maybe Joe Douglas works better at night. Maybe something pops through here in the next few minutes. Another improvement to this team, but we'll see how it progresses. Shortly thereafter, the signing of John Simpson, another signing was announced. Javon Kinlaw signed for a 1-year contract, $7.3 million. I think it's actually $7.25 million. So Javon Kinlaw, first round pick by the 49ers a few years back. They didn't extend him on his fifth year option, so he was able to be a free agent this year. And when kind of look at his history, he's battled through some knee problems throughout the last couple of years. Missed a lot of games. Played 3 games. Sorry, 4 games in 2021. Played 3 games in 2022 until he got back towards the tail end of the season and was able to finish out by playing the last 6 games. And then last year was a huge stepping stone for him. Was able to play a full season, including all the playoff games, and actually played pretty well by that means too. Had 2.5 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. Um, First year back off an injury. So really what it seems like here, Saleh's familiar with him from being back to San Francisco. And I mean I think Saleh was there his rookie year. Yeah, it would have been his rookie year, was his last year there. So familiar with the player. Obviously it's been a long time, but what the Jets are hoping for is that in a similar system coming over here, he can continue to progress. Hopefully have another healthy year under his belt. And you know, maybe earn some more money in the following offseason. But he's young, 26 years old, coming off a healthy season, a productive season for someone coming back off of 2 years. When you look at what Mekhi Becton went through, similar situation, missed a lot of football in the previous 2 years prior to 2023. Came back last year, just wasn't the same player we saw as a rookie for Mekhi Becton. It seems like Kinlaw is starting to get some of his footing back in 2023. So you can only hope that he can progress, get better from this season. Um, and like I said, what better situation than coming over to the Jets, who run a very similar system to what was being run in San Francisco. So hopefully the Jets can reap the benefits of someone just starting to get his legs back under him, get his knees under him again, and hopefully continue to progress. So Javon Kinlaw, 1 year, $7.3 million. I didn't get too much information on the contract. Seems a little rich potentially for a guy that's been battling through some injuries, but there's obviously a high upside. I wonder if there's some incentives in this contract, if the true number is 7.3, or if he can earn some escalators by playing time or whatever have you. So, like I said, I haven't seen too much information on the details around how the Jets get to that $7.3 million number, but something definitely of interest there potentially. And then the last signing of last night, a big signing here, but kind of something that was expected. Jets go with a quarterback, 2-year, $18 million contract for Tyrod Taylor. Um, Listen, I think the writing was on the wall. Obviously, Zach Wilson was not going to play another game with the team. Still technically under contract. I think the Jets are going to try and trade him, see if they can get something for him. At the end of the day, if they cannot find a trade partner, they will likely just release him. I think there's a dark cloud over this team, and until he's off the team, just all and it's not something against him. It's just this team has gone through so much darkness with this guy on the team. Last year, his confidence is shot. The best thing that can happen is him getting a fresh start somewhere. Ideally, the Jets can trade him. They would get some cap relief in that situation. Even if it's a situation, I know it's not a favorable one, but even if it's a situation where the Jets have to kind of, and this would be so unfortunate, but if they have to kind of up the ante a little bit by going like with like a low seventh, or an early seventh for a high seventh, um, I wonder if that's something that gets it done just for the sheer cap relief benefit that would bring with it. Um, we saw a year ago, Trey Lance got traded to the Cowboys. That trade was for a fifth round pick. But when you look at Trey Lance, just you weren't familiar with what he was. There was still that unknown of what can a good offensive coordinator or coach do with him. And I think that's at the end of the day, if someone does trade for Zach Wilson, it's going to be the similar situation. I just don't think that his value is high enough, especially considering, I mean, Woody Johnson himself basically said we need a backup quarterback. So I mean, the writing is on the wall with what the Jets are going to do with him. He will not be a player on this roster in 2024. You just have the hope that they can figure out some way of getting the cap relief at this point, because you're not going to get any major draft capital by any means, if anything at all. um, so yeah, those are the three signs last night. Overall, day one left a lot to be desired. It you know if you're a Jet fan like me, you were going into this. It's an all-in season. Got to make some moves. Got to improve this roster, um, and to come away with you know even the quarterback situation. I mean, it's an improvement. Tyrod Taylor's a 500 quarterback. It's what you want out of a backup quarterback. Obviously, more wins equals starting jobs. Hence why Gardner Minshew got a pretty hefty contract, 2 years, $25 million with the Raiders. Um, but in a situation like last year, the Jets will find themselves in a situation where they will still need to kind of address another quarterback here because Tyrod Taylor has, you know, as good as he's been as a backup quarterback, when he's been in there, he hasn't been in for long. So if it's a situation where he's got to start 2 or 3 games, he's a good guy to come in, probably squeeze out 2 wins for you. If it's something that he needs to be in there for more than that, you kind of start getting a little weary, because you just worry for that big hit. How is his body's going to respond to it? Because over the last few years, his body has not responded greatly. Um, so again, first day, gotta give them like a low grade here. They improved the left guard position, but only by virtue of it being terrible the year before. They're starting to fill in that defensive rotation here. They got Kinlaw, as I mentioned. Um, on day two, they did go after Leki Fotu, if I'm pronouncing that right. Played for the Cardinals last year, defense tackle. Um, you know, I haven't, I wasn't familiar with this guy. Can't tell you too much about him. All I can say is he's probably going to come in around the contract similar to what the Jets gave Al Woods last year, probably 1 year, $2 or $3 million. He's going to be that run stopper behind, um, that starting unit. How they feed him into that rotation, but that's kind of what you're looking here. They need to get that interior defensive line filled in. They're starting to fill that position here. Still got to work on the offensive line. They still need a wide receiver option outside of Garrett Wilson. Um, I know Calvin Ridley's out there. Deontay Johnson was out there. He got traded for what was basically a pick swap. Um, and Panthers also sent a corner too. I think it was Dante Johnson. If I remember the draft capital right, or the trade details right. He was a player I thought would be very interesting. Had a great year 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. In the last couple of years, haven't been the greatest, but he's still been a reliable target. Um, the quarterback play there in Pittsburgh was maybe a big issue with why his production wasn't as nearly as good as it was a few years back. But nonetheless, would have been a good option there. The wide receiver options are trimming down pretty quickly here. Not many great options out there. Still got Hollywood Brown out there as an option as well. Still have all those next tier. I think Darnell Mooney is the other big name receiver who's expected to be signed elsewhere. I think the Falcons are closing in on him. That'll be a good little situation for him down there with Kirk Cousins. But yeah, I mean, as the days progress here and the Jets don't fill these wide receiver options, they're still out there. But you're hearing that um, Calvin Ridley is likely going to choose between the Jaguars and the Patriots. Just gotta figure out some way, somehow, some way of figuring out these offensive positions. Because at the end of the day, going into the season last year, we had a lot of faith in what this team could be. It's the same team going into last year with a lot less offensive linemen. And going into the season last year, the offensive line was not a strength either. There was a lot of questions there. Dwayne Brown, Kai Becton, um, even Titman. I know we had a lot of faith in him, but there was questions there whether or not putting a rookie in there on day one. Um, Actually, I don't even think he started day one. I think it was Wes Schweitzer that started in his place. So just in general, questions going into last off season. Same questions this year. It's just the Jets now have a full refresh to really just bring in guys on the offensive line that they want to bring in day one, going into a new season with Aaron Rodgers. And so far, all they've done is John Simpson. Just and it's not a knock on him either. I was just hoping for a bigger splash, someone that you can feel confident in, not have any questions. Is he going to man that position? Are you going to trust him there? The answers to all those questions would be yes. John Simpson may be that guy, and the Jets may have gotten amazing value with him. I do want to look more into the film um, than what I have already, but I mean, at the forefront here, still needs to make more moves. So like I said, that's really it. That's all we have from a free agency move standpoint. These are our newcomers. Hoping for the best from these guys. But there was some other kind of ridiculous news that kind of found its way into the evening. And I really probably should have started off with this. I'm just kind of irritated, and it's just so Jets. But last year, obviously, we all know we traded for a Hall of Fame quarterback. He played 4 snaps. He injured himself, missed the rest of the season, and we got to experience the Zach Wilson effect for another season. Well, this offseason, not a lot of moves being made. Jets aren't really in the news making big splashes, but our quarterback that we traded for last year has found himself in the news. And I think it's absolutely insane that I am reading these words from the screen. But Aaron Rodgers for vice president. This is a real thing, people. There's He's supposedly one of the finalists to be a running mate with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And we all are very aware of Aaron Rodgers' friendship with RFK Jr. They in the offseason there was plenty of pictures of him at RFK's house. There's pictures of him, I think, like recently, um, hiking and with RFK Jr. So there's a definite bond there in some way, shape, or form. Um, Aaron Rodgers said he wants to play football 2 or 4 more years. I am hoping that this is just something that is in the news, but not real news. There is reports that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will announce who his running mate will be. I think it's also um, I forget who the other guy was. Crap, his name's on my tongue here. Oh, Jesse Ventura. That's right. That's who. Um, is the other potential finalist for Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s vice president ticket. Just kind of crazy news. I mean, Rodgers gave a report recently. He wants to be here for 2 or 4 more years. I think that's the way it's going to go. I cannot see a situation where our quarterback is running a campaign in 2024 with a potential presidential candidate. It it would just it would just be an embarrassment in all uh, in every sense of the word. It would just be embarrassing. But it's the Jets, and we find ourselves in these weird situations all the time. If you're a Jet fan, you just when you thought you've seen it all, um, our Hall of Fame quarterback that we traded for 1 season ago is going to be running for vice president potentially. He'll be a potential vice presidential candidate before he um, completes a game for the New York Jets. Is a possible situation that we can find ourselves in approximately 2 weeks. Is the report that I've heard. Unfortunately, when other teams are improving their rosters and you know making splashes, having a great time, um, you know we're over here trying to do damage control. And what does it mean that our quarterback is potentially a vice presidential candidate? um, yeah, just the overall feel for what is the New York Jets right now is not great. There's been a cloud over this organization since, well, I mean, obviously since the Aaron Rodgers injury, really. But it's kind of bled into months and months of just bad reporting out of the organization from I'm sorry, not bad reporting, bad reports coming out about the organization, whether it be, you know, just Nate Hackett's failure to adapt on the fly after the Rodgers injury, to the 30 sources in the um, athletic article, basically kind of explaining exactly what we all believe about the dysfunction inside the building. I do hope all those reports are incorrect, but unfortunately, it's a lot of what was being reported is stuff that we know or that we believe, and it just kinda, you know, turned to reality a little bit when it's actually coming from inside the building. Whether you wanna believe it or not is entirely up to you. And this was the Jets' first chance to really kinda wipe that slate clean. Had they come out here, gotten a big trade done, if Devontae Adams was available, making a trade for him, obviously takes two to tango. Doesn't sound like the Raiders want to get rid of Devontae Adams, but if there was something the Jets did at the opening days of free agency to kind of really show that it's about 2024, forget what's in the past, forget all that garbage. Here's what's going on. Big splash. Day one of free agency, day two of free agency. Here's you know, your building offensive line. Here's what we got. We're filling holes, and it's just not there yet. Obviously, the good teams build their rosters in these next waves of free agency, but when you're a team that's in an all-in window with a Hall of Fame quarterback that coming off an Achilles, although he says he's going to give it 2 years, it really all depends on what his body can do. He believes he can do it for 2 more years, says even possibly 4 more years. So let's get through one first. And right now, the way it's looking, not enough improvement to this offense to make it appealing for potential vice presidential candidate to want to come back for another season, even after this. Um, Again, still plenty of room to go. Still got all of free agency. Still got second and third waves of free agency. You still got obviously the NFL draft. Still got the post June one cuts, that window of time where a lot of players kind of find their way into the open market potentially. So still a window of time for the Jets to improve, but to this point, not enough improvement to kind of put Jets Nation in a better feel. Which shows better news to report at this point, but our team is getting better, just not as great as I think that a lot of us wanted to see it to this point in time. If you haven't already, appreciate you listening. But if you haven't, please like and subscribe to my channel. And most importantly, cross our fingers. something happens here. Nothing to this point since I've been on. We just gotta continue to cross our fingers and hope the Jets are working the phones and getting things kind of hammered out here. We're approaching 10 o'clock around the similar time. Jets were making moves yesterday, so my luck, once I drop off, a big move is going to be made and announced. But until then, go Jet fans. Let's go.